Mile High Podcast, hashtag I'm from Denver. We go all over the Mile High City talking to businesses, talking to entrepreneurs, and today we're at Ballmer Peak Distillery talking to Austin. Two friends, like since middle school, they started this distillery. And we're talking to one of those guys right now, Austin. Austin, I love what you got going on, man. Thanks. Tell me a little bit about the process and what it is that you guys do here.
Yeah, well, we make spirits. We make rum, gin, vodka, whiskey, and we do it all right here in this tiny little space.
Okay, so we're gonna do some samples after this,
Oh,
right?
yeah, definitely.
Right. So take me through, where do we start? Do we start here?
Let's come back around here. It all starts right back here. This is our mash tun. So this is where we convert our raw materials like molasses and malted barley into fermentable sugars.
Like okay, so it's not sugar, right? It's actual plants that you're putting in?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the molasses is a liquid. It's a byproduct of processing sugarcane, but it's very unrefined.
All right.
So that we just dissolve in water, but the malted barley, we need to break apart the complex sugars into fermentable sugars. So we heat the water, add the materials, and let that process happen. And then what we do is we transfer into our fermenters.
You dumping it in there? What do you do?
We use these transfer hoses here to pump from one to the other because it's 140 gallons.
Yeah, exactly.
Of really hot liquid.
It's a lot of dumping.
We've done it with buckets once or twice, and it's not fun.
Oh my God! All right.
So we pump the hot sugary liquid into these fermenters, and that's where we add our yeast. So the yeast is what actually makes the alcohol, and over the course of the next 3 days, it'll convert those sugars into ethanol and a lot of other byproducts.
And are you checking on it at any time, or are you just kind of
we can monitor the density of the liquid and determine how far along in the fermentation process it is. So we can essentially monitor how much alcohol is in it, and when there's no more sugars, that's as much alcohol as we're going to get from it.
Okay, and then at this point, is there flavoring, or is this are you following a recipe? Like, how do you know what to do?
So we did a bunch of trials on sugar sources, and we're essentially making a bad beer or wine at this point. Okay. So the flavors do matter, but they're less important at this particular stage because we're not drinking this beer or this wine. We're going to distill it and then drink just the alcohol from it.
So where do we do that? Where do we distill?
Once the fermentation is complete, this sugary liquid will now be a beer or wine that's anywhere from 3.5% to 11% alcohol by volume, depending on the product.
Tasteable, edible? Can you do it at that
point? Yeah, you could drink it. We don't seal up our fermenters, so we let bacteria and wild yeast get in there, so the flavors are going to be like a funky sour beer. So it might not be the best to drink, but there's still alcohol in it. Okay. We pump, again, from these fermenters into our 500-liter pot still.
That's what this is?
That's what this is, yeah. So that's a traditional style of still, and what we do is we heat liquid. It's a jacketed still, and we heat the liquid around what we transferred. So inside
it almost looks like 20,000 leagues under the sea, like some kind of like crazy.
Oh yeah.
And so all the plumbing and all that, like you guys did this?
We did most of the work here ourselves.
Wow.
Definitely.
And you knew how to do this before you started doing this?
A little bit. I learned a lot on the internet, and I worked at another distillery for about a year before opening here.
Okay, so you've only been doing this because you opened in November of 2019.
Yeah.
So maybe 4 years total.
Yeah.
And then you.
A generous 4 years.
Yeah, that's amazing. And then you just got on Google and said.
Yeah, we watched a lot of YouTube videos, read a couple of books, and kind of read a bunch of forums, and learned recipes and learned the basic procedures, and then really it was just a matter of doing it. So we did some home distilling in our apartment, in the backyard a little bit.
Yeah, practice before the real game,
Yeah.
Okay, so then now what happens?
So we put that beer or wine in here. It's let's say 11% alcohol by volume. What we're going to do is boil it because alcohol has a lower boiling temperature than water.
So how hot is this really going to get?
So it will never get hotter than boiling, the boiling temperature of water. So alcohols will start to boil off at around 170 Fahrenheit.
Okay. And then at that point, the alcohol is going up into this?
Yeah, as a gas or vapor, it rises into these different chambers and then compresses into this stainless steel column here. That's called the condenser.
Okay.
That's where we're doing a heat transfer. We're transferring the heat from the vapor into water. So this chamber is filled with a bunch of tubes.
Okay.
Those tubes are where the ethanol, the alcohol vapor passes through.
And
then
is it going crazy at this point, or is it like, I just picture it's like one of those things where it's like a mad scientist, like all the gauges are like at the tipping point?
So nothing, it's kind of a slow process.
Okay.
This dial is just vapor temperature, so it'll shoot up once the vapor reaches it, but it'll stay constant.
So that way
for
you
most
know
of the
that
run.
everything's kind of doing what it needs to
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
Okay.
And so what we're doing in this chamber is we're transferring the heat from the vapor to the water, which we have here in this recirculation tank.
Okay.
So we're reusing the same water over and over and over again, and trying to pull out the heat from the water that's pulling out the heat from the vapor.
And he got this all from Google, so.
Yeah, and so as the alcohol turns back into liquid, it flows out through here. This is called a parrot. This is this chamber then fills with the alcohol and lets us read in real time, more or less.
I mean, is it called a parrot because it's rum and pirates and all that? What's the?
I think it's repeating the same. It's giving you more chance to repeat the same information or look at it while it's still draining into our collection vessel.
Okay, so now what? Now it's ready to drink?
So it's not quite ready. What we'll do is we'll do what the first run, which is called a stripping run.
Okay.
That run, we're removing all of that alcohol that we can.
Okay.
So that 500 liters or 140 gallons of beer or wine at 11% will end up collecting about 30 gallons at 30%.
Oh, wow.
And so then we'll do that a couple more times, and we'll combine what we've collected back into the still, and then distill it a second time.
So when something says twice distilled, 3 times distilled, that's basically the process.
Yeah, exactly.
You're starting from the beginning, basically, and just keep going through that process.
Right, because then you can refine your product better and create a more desirable flavor profile.
Now, how do you know? Like, if something's distilled 2 times and you want to say, hey, 3, we should do it 3 times. How do you know? How do you make that decision?
By the taste and smell. If the product isn't where you want it, the good thing about distilling is you can just distill it again.
So what are you looking for? You're just looking for a good sip?
Yeah, good flavor, good smells, good aromas. It all depends on what we're trying to make. So with a lot of our products, we start with the molasses fermentation and then use essentially a silver rum as the base for a lot of other products.
Okay, that's cool.
So yeah, we'll then collect what we did and
the second time after you
combine
distilled
it.
the second time?
Yeah,
Okay.
and the second distillation, we're actually separate the different types of alcohol. So it's not just ethanol, but there's methanol and acetone, some unpleasant, undesirable things to drink in really small quantities, but it impacts the flavor. So we separate out the more volatile, less desirable flavors that those distill off first.
Leave something for the taste buds that they want.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then we start collecting, the product will end up bottling the hearts. But the longer you heat the hearts, the more water that starts to come up with the alcohol.
Okay.
And in that water, there's some off flavors and smells. So when we get towards the end, when too much water's coming up, then we'll stop collecting the hearts and then dispose of the tails.
Right on. So then what happens now? You're ready, you distilled it twice, where do we go?
So at that point, we could bottle it as silver rum.
Oh, okay.
We could add some filtered water, bring it down to bottle strength. So we'll collect it. It'll be about 140 proof, 70% alcohol by volume.
That's cool.
We'll then add water to bring it down to about 40%.
Right on. And then you sell it here too, right?
And then we sell right out of the tasting room.
That's awesome.
But
so it's literally from you walk 20 steps and you're from the kitchen to the table. You know?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. To the shelf.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So and then if we want to change that product, we can put it into our column still.
Okay, show me that.
Yeah.
Because that was actually, I found a little bit more interesting when you showed me that.
This is a column reflux still. So the same process. We'll take what we stripped out from the first run and then distill it again. We'll take that silver rum and put it into here to transform, either into vodka, spiced rum, or gin.
Okay.
At each one of these chambers, there's actually a copper plate, and as the alcohol heats up, it boils, it passes through this copper plate, and then condenses, turns back into liquid. And it happens in each one of these chambers. So
the higher it goes up, what happens is the higher it rises.
Yeah. So as the more it distills, the stronger the alcohol gets. The more water gets.
So I want to write about here, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, that's actually what this section here is for.
Okay.
That's called a deflegmator, and what it is, it's a condenser that forces the vapor to condense in line and constantly redistill until it's strong enough or at the strength level that we're looking for.
So you and your boy, you're on Google. And what's your friend's name again?
Eric.
Eric. So you and Eric are on Google saying, hey, like you knew this process was next? Like I just can't fathom that you knew exactly how to make all of these connect. I mean, did you have this when you had this part? Or
So this was all part of the business plan.
Yeah.
Like we did our research over the course of 5 years. We weren't necessarily distilling at that time, but we were learning about it and using it as an excuse to visit other distilleries and taste a lot of other products.
Yeah. Oh, so you were like a spy.
Yeah.
You're basically like an undercover spy, getting the info you need to, asking the questions. That's awesome.
At my first distillery job at Denver Distillery, the owner didn't realize I was opening my own distillery until like 3 or 4 months into it. And then from then on, he only called me espion, which is French for spy. So
that's not the best name, but at least it has a flair to it.
Yeah.
You know? Okay, so then up top you said.
Yeah. So above the deflegmator, we have a sight glass that we use as a gin basket or a vapor basket. That's where we'll put our botanicals for the spiced rum and the gin.
That's awesome.
And so those. The ethanol vapor passes through those botanicals still as vapor and extracts those essential oils and flavors, and then passes over the line arm into the main condenser, and then embodies the flavor into the final.
Put the bottle there, and you're ready to go. Like,
almost.
Okay.
So it'll
just sit down there.
It'll still be a really strong percentage. So coming off of this still, we can get.
Everclear, basically.
Yeah, 95%
right?
alcohol by volume. It's strong. We can then proof it down. Again, we're adding filtered water to bring it down to bottle strength or whatever desirable strength.
You want it to be enjoyable. You don't want to give someone
We're not using it as sanitizer or paint thinner. You know, we're gonna drink it, so you want it to be just right.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. So let's. Can we taste now, or what? Is that? Those are all the steps until you bottle. Is that right? So let's go get some samples.
All right.
I'm ready to go try this, man. All right, so I know I was joking, but I'm not. Let's pour some drinks. But while you pour them, man, tell me a little bit about it. You started this with your middle school friend?
Yeah. So Eric and I have been friends since before middle school, and we started this because we like alcohol.
Who doesn't, right?
Eric moved to Denver before I did. We grew up in the Phoenix area.
Oh, okay.
And I was out here visiting for a friend's wedding. We went to a bunch of brewery tours and ended it.
I said we should do this. Let's Google this.
Essentially, yeah. We ended up at a distillery, Golden Moon Speakeasy in Golden, and we're just like, what if we did something like this?
Yeah.
We love craft beer, but that market's a bit saturated. Let's go down and try some spirits. And so we started from then. Started as like kind of a joke, like, oh yeah, we'll open up our own bar one day. Yeah. But
there's Eric and Austin, those guys from middle school.
Like, wouldn't it be fun? But yeah, eventually Eric just hated his job so much. He's a web programmer and designer.
Such a flip. You guys went from here to here. That was a complete 180.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. And so he was getting fed up, so he put more and more time into this building out the business plan, and I kind of just traveled around and tasted a lot of products from around the world. And
well, let's drink to that, man.
Yeah. So this is our white whiskey. So it's an unaged single malt, Scotch inspired. We take mostly Colorado grown malt. We take pale Munich.
Do you try to keep it?
Crystal
Do you
malt.
try to keep it like Colorado local for most of the stuff?
We do a blend. We try to get our raw materials as close to us as we can. With grain, that's really easy, but with molasses, that's really hard because sugarcane doesn't grow very well in Colorado.
Yeah.
So,
go figure.
But we do get U.S. grown or U.S. processed molasses.
Okay, so what were you saying? Then the process of that is.
So this has, if you're familiar with malted barley, it's got different roast levels of malted barley. So we use pale, crystal, and Munich malts from Colorado, and then we also use some peated malt from Scotland.
Wow.
So it's going to have that smoky earthiness to it.
Yeah, you can feel it.
Yeah.
It's not like a burn. It's like where some whiskeys might give you that.
Right.
It's actually like that fiery, smoky flavor to it. That's crazy.
Yeah. And then there's we find some dark chocolate notes in there too. So
really?
it's a really cool kind of fun way to do a whiskey while we have other whiskeys kind of aging.
So as far as the process goes in there, how many was this distilled, or how many times did you distill it?
Yeah, so this is twice pot distilled.
Okay.
We'll do a all malted barley fermentation. So we'll take something like 350 pounds of grain, put it in with a hot water, break it apart into simple sugars, and then strain the grain, so we just get liquids.
Strain the grain.
That mash tun has a giant strainer at the bottom, and we're able to separate the liquids from the solids.
I just came up with a shirt for you. I don't know if you caught on.
Strain the grain.
Strain the grain. All right, that's awesome.
Yeah, and then we use a Norwegian farmhouse yeast. Traditionally a wild kind of yeast that's relatively newly cultured, and it ferments really quickly and in really hot
it's
circumstances.
not, because some whiskeys are even you sip it and you're like you want to make a face, or or you don't want to go back for a second sip.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you're like, oh, give me some Coke or something to drink. With
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
This is really smooth, and even chilled is like very nice.
Yeah. So we try to make all of our spirits of sipping quality. We want people to be able to enjoy it neat on the rocks and still have the option to put them in a cocktail if they want.
No, that's awesome.
So people always ask me what cocktails I recommend, and I've got to look at the menu because I just drink everything neat.
So this one's a Ballmer Peak Distillery whiskey distilled from specialty malts. So if they come in here, that's what they're asking for.
Yeah, it's our white whiskey.
It's the white whiskey is what they'll ask for.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, and then so pour me up another one, and then I want to know a little bit about what happened during COVID, because you started November 2019. Let me finish this one off. You started November 2019.
Yeah, we started the end of November, and we were kind of unsure of, we just started a new business.
You started a new business right before.
We don't know what regular is yet. We go through the holiday season. We're like, okay, people are starting to show up. We're getting a little busier, and then
which is even harder to gauge because holiday season. You don't even
and
know
January comes through, but no one drinks in January apparently.
They're all hungover from New Year's.
Right. So February we're just starting to get in the rhythm of like, okay, maybe this is what we can expect, and then March comes and our tasting room has to close. So we're doing all of our business through our tasting room right now. Every dollar we earn came from our tasting room, and so when that had to close,
it's not a bad tasting room.
No, it's small. It's a little small, but
it's about the quality on the inside.
Right.
That matters. Yeah.
And so we were looking at what other states and other distilleries in those states were
still
doing.
Pre-COVID though, still pre-COVID, right? You're still trying to get a feel for all this. Things were getting a little.
Yeah, and then we saw like things were happening, and Washington and Oregon were kind of shutting down, and so we saw the writing on the wall. We knew it was happening. We started off seeing the toilet paper shortage, and we encouraged.
What are we gonna do?
We actually, when we leased this building, that our supply closet was full of toilet paper.
Oh my God.
Like a 3-year supply.
So you had a king's ransom, basically. Yeah.
Except it took a year to do a build out, and by the time we got done with the build out, March hits and the toilet paper shortage hits, and we're out of toilet paper. So
you were like everyone else. You couldn't find any anyway.
So what we did was we encouraged the community, bring in a roll of toilet paper, get a discount on a drink. We'll use 1 or 2 here. If someone needs a roll of toilet paper, they can just come and grab one.
So immediately you were just thinking, how can we give back?
Yeah.
It wasn't even so much like, I'm not saying toilet paper is a selfish thing and you're thinking, how can I get free toilet paper?
Yeah.
But you were like, hey, how can we get something that's in demand and help others?
Right, exactly. Try and make a win-win-win type situation.
Yeah.
And so when we saw the writing on the wall that we were going to have to close, we looked at other distilleries in those places with higher restrictions, and we noticed that some of them had started making
using that Google again.
That's right. And so what we did is I called up those distilleries and said, hey, how are you making hand sanitizer? Are you worried about the government coming down on you for not having the right license type? Because we're only licensed to make distilled spirits for drinking. Not distilled spirits for hand sanitizer.
And you've probably seen a few people making this hand sanitizer, right? Or
There were a couple, not in Colorado yet. And so I had done test batches, the week before the shutdown, trying to make sure that we could,
Again, did you know you had no idea how to make hand sanitizer,
No.
or did you know because of the process that you did? Hey, if I'm
It's similar because you can
alcohol-based.
you can use that Everclear essentially that we're making that 95% and dilute it to the optimal strength, and then adding a couple other components. So we looked up the World Health Organization's recipe, which is just ethanol.
Google is like you and Eric. That's like your
glycerin.
third best friend right there.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we just took ethanol, glycerin, and hydrogen peroxide.
Wow.
And then mixed them together, and that's the WHO's guidelines or recipe for hand sanitizer.
Okay, so I want to talk about what you did after you made the hand sanitizer, but let's drink.
So this is our Australian-inspired gin. So this takes flavors and botanicals from Australia. I lived in Australia for about 18 months, so that's kind of...
It's not harsh.
No.
It's not harsh.
It's going to be less juniper forward, and instead we're focusing on the Australian botanicals and flavors.
Yeah, it almost has that plant-based.
Yeah, so there's eucalyptus, lemon myrtle, finger lime, pepperberry.
Again, was that recipe looked up, or is that you and Eric messing around and trying to find?
That's trial and error. That's
Yeah.
that's the other part of the process is the recipe development, kind of looking at which botanicals and flavors pair well together, and then going from there.
That is good.
Thanks.
That's crazy though, because it's another thing where there's a flavor palette after the sip, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So and you can even now you can still kind of get a little bit of that, probably the eucalyptus.
Yeah. So we're going for more of a floral gin, less juniper forward. Kind of that eucalyptus gives like a citrusy mint flavor, bright and crisp.
It's good.
Yeah, not like chewing on a handful of pine needles.
No, not at all. So you guys made the hand sanitizer. What was the process then? Because at that point you have to distribute it out. Cool, good for you guys. You made some hand sanitizer. How is anyone going to find it? Everyone's at their house right now.
Right. Yeah. So as soon as we got the okay from our regulatory body, the TTB, that was like, all right, you don't need the extra license, and we're not going to yell at you.
Oh, so there was literally a process to get approval to even be allowed to do that.
Yes.
Oh,
and so because of the circumstances, a lot of that red tape was cut. We were able to kind of just go with it. So we made the hand sanitizer, and then I immediately contacted every news outlet. We posted on social media just saying, hey.
Were you thinking about branding at that point? Was it kind of because, I mean, you're thinking you're a new business, you're just starting out. Obviously, you need to get that brand exposure. Was that kind of part of it, or was really the whole goal kind of, hey, we know that we can give back to the community? What was your thought process?
It was a little bit of both.
Yeah.
It was definitely the bigger motivator was just like calming the panic. Like we saw how people were just buying up toilet paper and buying up hand sanitizer. Like it couldn't stay on the shelves. So if we could help mitigate or reduce that panic, that was a huge win.
Wow.
And we didn't expect to blow up in the way that we did, and
that's what happened. So you called the news, you called everyone, and they just showed up.
I emailed everyone. We posted on social media, and what we were doing was
What would you say? Hey, we're making hand sanitizer.
Yeah, we've got hand sanitizer. It's free. Come get it.
Oh yeah.
We don't
anything
have
with free. That's all.
We don't have any bottles or any containers to put it in, but bring your own container, and we'll fill up with like 4 ounces.
See, that's what did it, because people probably showed up with gallon.
Yeah, so they did.
Gallon jugs.
We tried to, the whole point of this was to mitigate the panic and get it to as many people as we could. So we didn't fill those people, people brought 5-gallon jugs, say, how much can I get? And I was like, look, we're, per person, we're doing about 4 ounces because we're making it as fast as we can. Yeah. We're converting old alcohol, that we had sitting around, and we're also now getting offered bad alcohol. So it started off, we couldn't keep up with demand. We ordered bottles, but everyone had ordered bottles, so they were on a 3-month delay. And we got in contact with breweries. They had to shut down as well, and they're sitting on a lot of beer. That beer is going to go bad.
Oh yeah.
It's not going to taste good. So one of the first breweries we worked with was Wynkoop Brewing in Denver, and they donated 1,000 gallons of beer. They had overproduced for baseball season and for St. Patrick's Day.
So it was just going to go bad anyway.
So they hey, this is going to go to waste. So we found a local Ace Hardware that had a box truck with a lift gate, and we bought a recycled tote or a giant plastic cube.
Yeah.
And we shuttled it over to Wynkoop, filled it up with a transfer hose, brought it back, distilled it, turned it into hand sanitizer.
Wow.
So we did that.
At that point, the news is already here. So or did you already get the wind coop?
Yeah, no, that was the news.
The news was here and gone at that point.
Yeah, I mean, we'd get like maybe for the first month we had like 3 or 4 news outlets come by.
Okay, but the demand because of those news.
It was huge.
It was huge. That's why you went to wind coop and got all.
Yeah, and we had lines out the door. We had lines around the building. When people just trying to get their hand sanitizer.
Now, was anyone able to drink? Because I can imagine people are coming for hand sanitizer and like, hey, I'll take a whiskey on the rocks.
So we were closed at that point. We could not serve anything to
nothing
drink.
was open, yeah.
But we could sell bottles. And so we encouraged people.
Just like this, okay.
Yeah. We encouraged people, hey, we're not asking for any money from the hand sanitizer, but we'll take donations, we'll sell you our spirits. And so during that March, April, May, we were selling out of...
Which is the peak.
Yeah.
That was the peak of everything that went on, yeah.
We were selling out of all of our drinkable alcohol and our, giving away all of our hand sanitizer as much as we could. So on top of just giving it out to community members who showed up, we were giving larger amounts to first responders, healthcare workers,
I bet you didn't plan for any of this.
No.
It started in November 2019.
No, you would ask me, December of 2019 if I'd ever make hand sanitizer, and I'm like, no, that's...
Why would I
ever do that? Like, no.
Then you were running out of it.
Yeah.
All right, let's pour another drink. What do we got now? I really like the gin, by the way.
This is our spice Strom. So it's made similarly to the gin. We distill it through botanicals and flavors.
And this is the flavor that was at the top of the glass in there. Okay.
Exactly. So this is made with Sichuan peppercorn, cardamom, ginger, vanilla bean, cinnamon. So we're going for a peppery, rum without
but not
being
overpowering.
Spicy.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly. So it's
even
not,
the second smell is like different than the first. That's crazy.
It's not like a cinnamon red hot. It's not going to taste like an artificial kind of flavor because we use botanicals that we get again from Savory Spice here in Denver.
Yeah.
We work with them, so we don't have to buy, say, a pound of vanilla bean if we're only going to use a quarter of an ounce. We can get a blend made and then only use buy a pound of the blend instead.
That is delicious. That is wild.
Yeah, it's really fun. That one, the gin is probably our most popular, and then the spice rum is growing in popularity.
Yeah, because you don't really know what to expect, and then after that first sip, you're like, oh, okay, this is pretty delicious.
A lot of the job is educating people on what spirits can taste like. It's not everything's not gonna not every gin is gonna taste like Gordon's, and not every spice rum is gonna be Captain Morgan's or Sailor Jerry's.
Yeah. There's actually good stuff.
There's some good stuff out there.
Yeah, exactly. Totally. Hey, well, cheers. What's next? I want to know, kind of tell everyone out there, like, where can they get this? Where can they find you? Are you online? Is it only here? What happens?
So we're starting to get out into liquor stores slowly.
That's a process.
Yeah, it's a process. We're self-distributing. We're doing all the sales ourselves.
So you're making it.
Yep.
You're putting it on the shelves. You're serving it.
But the best way is just to come down to our tasting room, and if you have a liquor store that you love, ask them if they have our product.
Yeah.
Say, hey, do you have Ballmer Peak Distillery's gin? And if enough people ask them, it'll be an easier sell when we finally get in contact with someone.
Well, they'll fall in love at the first sip. Without a doubt. Like, all three were good. So, what's the 5-year plan? You got a 10-year plan. What do you got?
That's a great question. We're
more hand sanitizer.
Hopefully never hand sanitizer again. But kind of more focusing on matured spirits. So all of these are relatively young. We have some experimental maturation or aging that we're using for certain spirits. We've got a golden rum, but we're just about to release a double oaked rum.
Okay.
We've got
you got me.
Which is what I have.
See,
a little sample right here.
Yes.
So this is I don't know how strong it is.
Well, I'll tell you.
It's probably close to 100 proof, 50% alcohol by volume.
So see, that's not even harsh for that.
Yeah. So this is our silver rum that's rested with charred French oak and
so it's
charred
in barrels.
American oak. It's not in barrels. So we do a chip and spiral process. So we get toasted spirals and toasted wood chips, and then put them into large glass containers, and then put those glass containers into a hot water bath, like a sous vide system.
Oh, wow.
And then heat, cool over the span of 10 to 20 days until it's ready. And during that time, it's oxygenating, it's recirculating, and it's kind of, the flavors are being extracted from the rums.
That's wild, because it's almost like a smoky sweet.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
Definitely. So that's one that we're really excited for. We've got some barrels, some traditional cask aging that we're doing with our white whiskey that's been in a used rye barrel that we're looking forward to releasing in the next 9 months or so. We've got an experimental bourbon that we're releasing later this month. So before the end of March, we'll have a bourbon style whiskey out that we made with corn, rye, and barley.
How do people find you online? You got a social Instagram handle?
We're on everything.
Yeah. Ballmer Peak Distillery?
Ballmer Peak Distillery on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. And we are Ballmer Peak CO on Twitter.
Okay, so you and your boys you've been friends since middle school. You started this. So there's a huge connection there to friends.
Yeah.
So what's behind the name? Is there some kind of meaning behind the name between you two?
Well, yeah, so we like people to think that Ballmer Peak is a mountain peak. Colorado, there's a lot of mountains, there's a lot of outdoor activities, but the Ballmer Peak we're referencing is actually the peak on a line graph. It has to do with your blood alcohol content and your productivity. It's originally a programmer's term named after Steve Ballmer of Microsoft.
Oh, wow.
So it's the theory of like you start off...
Does he know about
I don't know yet, So you start off with whatever you're doing. Maybe you're only about this productive. You start drinking, your productivity drops, and then you keep drinking, and it starts to rise because your inhibitions are lowered.
I think I'm just about to hit my peak. I think I'm going back up after all these.
So it works with everything, not just programming. So people who say that they're better at pool after a few beers, or better playing guitar or something like that, it just applies to everything. So
it makes it memorable too, because now that you know the meaning behind that, it completely changes how you think of the name.
Yeah, exactly.
Because at first I was thinking it sounds like a baseball stadium, but now when you explain it, I'm like, oh my god! I was like, that makes complete sense. So, well, I'm about to hit my Ballmer Peak. I appreciate you, Austin. Good luck to you and Eric. And I will be back here without cameras, sipping away here soon, man. When
awesome.
because you're not open yet, right? You are open, right?
Yeah.
The rules haven't changed, so you're 100% back.
We're at 50% capacity.
Okay,
right
cool.
Now. Yeah.
All right. Well, then every other seat will be filled by me. Hey, well, cheers, man. Best of luck to you guys.
Yeah. Thanks.
Another episode of the Mile High Podcast. # I'm from Denver. I'm producer Wiggins. Thank you to Ballmer Peak Distillery. If you want to be featured on here, maybe you got a crazy story, maybe you're an entrepreneur, a business, I want to have you. # I'm from Denver, Mile High Podcast. Reach out to me, producer Wiggins, and thank you for streaming. Thank you for watching. Until next time.